Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how you can play over a 12-bar blues using just the blues scale, but make it sound so much more interesting by outlining the chords you're playing over. If I was playing over a 12-bar blues, let's say in the key of A, I could literally take a blues scale, this one, and I could use that to improvise, and that would be perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can, of course, use the whole neck. You can use Mixolydian scales, but I'm not going to go into anywhere near that much complexity in this lesson. I'm going to show you how you can take the chords of a 12-bar blues and outline those chords using notes within the chord. Have a look at the screen, and this is basically what a 12-bar looks like in the key of A. So you've got 4 bars of A, or A7. You've got the option to play a D7 on bar 2 if you want. But let's keep it simple. Let's play 4 bars of A like this. 1, 2, 3, 4 again. 2, 3, 4. Third bar. Fourth bar. Here comes a D7. 2 bars of that. And then back to the A7 for 2 bars. A bar of E7. A bar of D7. A bar of A7. And finally a bar of E7. Back to the beginning again. And that's your basic 12 bar, and if you're playing it like I did with bar chords, you can move it anywhere. Anyway, so if I was going to play over this without anyone behind me, no backing track, no rhythm guitarist, no bassist, and just use that scale, it would sound okay, but have a listen to this. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's kind of no reference there to the chords. It kind of sounds boring. I'm going to now do it again, but this time I'm going to try and draw your attention to the chord changes, even though there's no rhythm player or backing track. 2, 3, 4. Okay, nothing groundbreaking there, but you could hear some kind of change happening underneath. What I was doing is I was highlighting notes within the chord. So for example, when I have the A7 chord, every time I'm playing over that, I'm noodling around using the scale, but sometimes, especially when I return to that chord, I highlight this root note here, this root note here, and this root note here, all notes of A. That's 5 on the low string, 7 on the D string, and 5 on the top E string. Okay, and you can really hear that resolve. By the way, sometimes I take this note of C and I like to play it over here. Instead of that, I like to go. Just because it sounds more interesting. But I'm not leaving the scale. So the other thing we could do is we could also highlight the root notes of the D chord when we change to that. So when I play the D or the D7, I accent this note, 5 on the A string or 7 on the G string. So see if you can hear the change to the D. 1, 2, 3, 4, A7 chord, still A7, D7, back to A7, E7, D7, E7, back to the beginning, back to A7. So the root notes were 5 and 7. I can do the same on the E chord. Now ideally I don't want to have to move to this E7. I'd like to stay where I am. And there's a root note of E here, and there's another E here. And again, I can highlight those when I change to that E7 chord. Now, the root notes are kind of an easy approach, but the problem is if you always land on the root note, you get a very predictable sound. So here's a little trick. What you can do is you can play the third, the major third of the chord, and that's a great little trick. So here's my A chord, here's my A7, that's my major third there. But there's another one outside of the chord. Instead of playing 6 on the G string, I can also play a major third of an A chord here on the 4th fret of the A string. Watch what happens if I use that note, which by the way isn't in our scale. Our scale has a minor third here, not a major third. That's why we tend to bend that wrong note up towards the correct major third. Watch what happens if I play over a 12 bar. There's no backing track though, I'm hearing it in my head. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that third. Here we go, 2, 3, 4, A chord. There it is. D chord. Back to the A and so on, you get the idea. Okay, so, and there's no harm in adding that third to the scale itself. So instead of getting just that, you've now got lift to the major third. By the way, that wrong minor third also appears here, 8 on the low E string, which is why we tend to bend it slightly, and then 8 on the top E. Again, that's wrong, so we tend to slightly push it. You could even slide it over to the correct major third. That's a nice little lick there. Okay. Now, we could do the same with the D chord. Here's the D chord, or the D7. We can take the major third, which is here, where pinky is, or we could add the major third that's outside the chord here. So have a listen. 1, 2, 3, 4. A chord. D chord. I'm landing on its third. And back to the A chord. E chord, and so on. You get the idea. Now, the major third of the E chord is, well, here it would be pinky, but I don't really want to leave my pattern. I'm going to stay here and play this E7 chord. It's like a C-shaped chord with a little pinky note on the G string. So my third is here, okay? I'm not a big fan of this note, but it's okay, you can use it. Now, you could also go further than this. You could use the perfect fifth of every chord as a kind of a resolving note, but it doesn't resolve very well. It's not the best note. It doesn't tell us much about the chord. Perfect fifths don't tell us if our chord is major or minor. So it's not my preferred choice, but it's nice to know it's there. Something I prefer using is a minor seventh. This is a great way to transform your blues playing. Imagine playing a lick that would normally resolve on a root note, but instead you resolve on a minor seventh. Have a listen. This is going to resolve on the root note. Okay, it's a nice resolving sound, but sometimes we don't want to sound that pretty in blues. Sometimes we want to kind of annoy people a bit by not quite resolving. So this time I'm going to do the same kind of thing, but instead of landing on the root, I'm going to land on the minor seventh. Okay, so I landed on 5. Okay, that note there is on minor seventh. It's even in our A7 chord. It's right there under the bar, 5th fret on the D string. You can also add 8 on the B string. Okay, you could do the same thing on the D7 chord. Here's the D7, there's our minor 7 there. 2, 3, 4, A chord, still A. Now that doesn't sound as good to me. That sounds like I'm not sure what chord I've just played over. So I tend to use it more on the 1 chord, but you can use it on the 4 chord, the D7 chord. Same with the E7 chord, you've got a flat 7 there. Knowing that these intervals are there means you've got far more options to play around, to kind of highlight the change of the chord. You have to be able to hear that change in your head first, of course. One last idea that's really simple. You can actually play the chord itself. You could take an A7 chord and play an A7 arpeggio, like this. I don't always like to do the whole thing because it feels like I'm trying to crowbar it into my solo. I like to do little bits like this. It's a nice sweepable lick as well. Down, 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 up. I could do the same on the D7 chord. The arpeggio would be here. On the E7, I could do this. I could go. Let's see what this sounds like. This time I'll make it more interesting. I think I'm going to add a little backing track in the key of A. D7. Okay, and I'll do an arpeggio. E7. Let's try the E7 arpeggio. Okay, so D. Anyway, that video was short but sweet. I hope it was useful to you. If so, please click like and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.